everyone, here and at home. This is the time and place for regular August 2024 Royal Oak Planning Commission meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order, and I'll ask the commissioners to introduce themselves and staff down starting at this end.
Clyde Esbury.
Charlene Douglas, City Commissioner.
Doug Hedges, City Planner.
Josh Markham, City Attorney's Office.
Woody Gontina.
Jim Ellison.
And I'm Gary Casado, the chairperson. All right, the first order on the agenda here is approval of the July 9th meeting minutes. I would ask if the commissioners had a chance to review these. Do they have any comments, questions, corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval.
All right, is there a second? All right, I think Clyde was first. Motion by Mr. Ellison to approve, second by Mr. Esbury. Is there any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, I'll call for a voice vote. All those in favor of approval of the July 9th minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. The minutes are approved. I'll sign those and pass them over. All right, I am going to call for, you know what, before I call for the public comment, does anybody want to add anything to the agenda today? Okay, I do. I just want to ask at the end to discuss the protocol for the meeting next week. So I would like to talk about that if that's something that we can discuss. All right, public comment. So is there anyone here in the public who would like to come forward and speak on an issue that is not on the agenda? If so, come forward, introduce yourself, and you get 3 minutes to give your presentation. Seeing
Chairman,
nobody in the room.
I'd like to note that the auditorium is empty.
Yeah, this is like C-SPAN, right? The auditorium is empty, so seeing nobody, I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back to this side of the table for the new business. I would ask Mr. Hedges, do we need to address item 4A or not?
No, we do not. Item 4A, the special land use and site plan at 211 East Lincoln Avenue was withdrawn yesterday. The petitioners looking to revise the plans they had submitted and submit another application at a future meeting. It was noticed as a public hearing, but since there is no one here to offer any comment, we would have had to allow them to speak should they have chose to, but there's no one here, so nothing further is needed on that item.
All right, we'll move forward to other business. This is item SV 24-0807. This is a sign variance on the new Tim Hortons on Woodward. Mr. Hedges, can you walk us through the request here?
Yeah. Mr. Casado,
Yes.
I'm just curious as a matter of protocol, I want to ask the city attorney, is it proper for us to vet this with no petitioner here and no public comment, no anything, or does it make sense to make a motion to postpone this until the petitioner is present?
Well, the petitioner was invited. I don't believe they have to be here for
Okay.
us to move forward.
All right, very good.
He knows we're here. He knows we're going to discuss it. It's his option to come and listen.
Just want to get it on the record.
They were also notified today that we wanted to let them know that the item before them had been pulled, so had they plan on showing up later because of that, to know that no, you will be the first and only agenda item tonight, so be here on time.
Very good.
All right, thank you for that. Tell us about the request.
There are 3 signs involved in this request on the new Tim Hortons. It is currently, I believe it's under construction still. There are 2 signs on each side of the building and 1 on the front. The slide showing now on the screen shows the 2 signs proposed on the south side of the building and the west front. Both of those signs are placed above the roof line of the building, and one of them, sign 2A on the front facade, would exceed the maximum permitted sign area on the facade due to its size. It exceeds the maximum area. The maximum allowed area would be 33 square feet, and they do exceed that one on sign 2A by 11.17 square feet. Sign 2B on the south side, the size complies with the required maximum, but again, both sides are placed above the roof line of the building. Sign 2C is a graphic on the north side of the building. It is partially above the roof line of the building, partially below it, but again, it is placed above the roof line. The size falls within the required limits. So what they are seeking is there's one variance needed to place all three of the signs above the roof line of the building. And then sign 2A on the front also needs a variance for the maximum permitted sign area.
Those are the only three?
Those are the only three, yes. All the other signs were determined by the building division to comply with required sign standards.
All right. Okay, so, are there any questions for Mr. Hedges on this request? All right, seeing none, I'm going to ask, I see somebody walked in. I'm looking, is the petitioner for the Tim Hortons sign variance present? That's not you. Okay, they're not present, so we can proceed to discuss this as we understand from council and staff without them present. So I would ask if the commissioners have comments or a motion. I have some comments, but I'm not going to go first. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, I think based on the design of the building, you know, I'm curious, by the way, what my colleagues have to say. This is just my first instinct is I don't see it being a challenge to build above or to have the sign placed above the roof line. What I'm interested in is the sign on the front in its 11 plus square feet variance from the ordinance in terms of size going above the 33 square feet. Is that, and I wish the petitioner was here because I think that the way I understand this being built, it's a little bit offset. You know, does it have to be a little bigger to make people aware that, hey, there's a Tim Hortons coffee here, more of a wayfinding necessity as opposed to an advertising necessity. Given the fact that the building is smaller, it may be missed a little bit. I can only presume, but maybe my colleagues have an idea. And if that's the case, I mean, just from an optical point of view, it doesn't seem to be imbalanced to the building. And I think if it's offset a little bit, it doesn't seem to be a ridiculous request, but I really hope the petitioner was here to kind of enlighten us as to, is that a wayfinding issue because it's set back a little bit? I don't know.
Mr. Esprey.
And Mr. Mayor, I share your exact concerns, and there's a couple questions that I want to ask that I think are of a very similar nature. And then the reason I asked my previous question was I didn't want to be in a position where we end up voting against it. I don't know how the vote's going to go, but let's just say for argument's sake that we do. And, you know, tough luck, you weren't here, you can pound salt. I didn't want to be in that situation.
No. I'll just add one. I mean, part of back of mine is if it is wayfinding, and it helps. I mean, I'm not trying to pit coffee company versus coffee company, but if it can alleviate some of the stresses with Starbucks on Woodward, and people are going to find this one and spread that coffee consumption out and alleviate some of the traffic issues we have, because, you know, it's general area, same side of the road. You know, maybe it does benefit the community to have a little bigger sign if, you know, because of the backlog that we always see at Starbucks. So I can't make that position. I can't say that, but it'd be, again, if the petitioner was here, they might have some ideas.
Cantina.
So I generally agree with both of you. I don't necessarily have an issue with the fact that they are considered roof signs versus wall signs. The way they read on the building, they sort of read on a wall, if not for the parapet behind it. So I don't have an issue with that. But I sort of agree in the sense that, I guess from the other perspective, I would like to understand why the sign couldn't be scaled down a commensurate percentage to be in compliance with the ordinance and not require that variance. I think there's plenty of room on that facade of the building for the sign to just essentially be scaled down, the design all being the same, but be in compliance at that point. Again, if it is a wayfinding issue or if the concern is distance off the road, I would like to hear that explanation, but since they're not here, it is a little bit more difficult. Because this is one of those where I see that they could easily be in compliance and still meet the goal.
And Mr. Casada, I think you may have been on the board, and I know Mr. Ellison was, when the Tim Hortons went on 11 Mile over by I-75, and they came in with a very comprehensive sign package. And their argument was fundamentally, this is our corporate package, and this is what we present to everybody. And I don't quite frankly remember, because it's been so many years, the actions that we took. Did we compel them to bring it into compliance? I don't remember those actions, but I suspect that we're just being presented with the standard corporate sign package, and here it is.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Hedges. I just want to be clear about this. You have 2A, 2B, and 2C, right? And
Yes.
which one is too large? Is it 2A?
It is 2A, the one that is on the narrow front of the building.
And is that because it's a proportionality issue? In other words?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. What's allowed is the maximum wall sign area per elevation is 10% of the facade area up to a maximum of 100 square feet. As you can see, that front elevation is extremely narrow for a building. Not many buildings we have are only 18 feet 8 inches wide. So that, they're 10% of that area is relatively small. However, on 2B, on the side elevation, they have no issue at all.
Okay, so-
Meaning that it's mostly just the narrowness of the building that's causing the issue.
Okay, if I understand correctly, looking at these drawings, the images are supposed to be the same scale, 1 to 8 on this page that shows 2A and 2B. It seems to me that those two signs are exactly the same size. They
They
just
are.
happen to be on different parts of the building.
They are, in fact, yes, the same size.
So here's my view of it. And some of you were on the panel when this happened and others were not. I'd be happy to republish it. I went through a written brief, so to speak, on interpretation of our ordinance and our statute. And it's my firm belief that a parapet wall sign is not above the roof line, according to our own ordinance and how statutes are supposed to be interpreted. So I would view this is that the two signs that are on the parapet are in conformance, they're not out of conformance. And I would be in favor, given the fact that the woodward facing side, the sign is the same size. What you're really suggesting is if, in order to pull this into compliance, you would make that sign smaller, which probably would look funkier than having all three signs the same size. So I would grant the one variance that I think is required on the woodward facing sign. That would be my thinking. Mr. Mayor.
I would not object to that if someone made a motion in that regard, because I do wonder, does it really dramatically change? It does, if you shrink it, with wayfinding, it might be an issue, and you lose the proportionality among all the signs, which is kind of, seems not strange, but you're right, aesthetically, this doesn't bother me. It seems in proportion. I kind of agree with you.
Mr. Ellison.
This doesn't bother me at all. I think we start, when the sign ordinance was put in place, there was a reason why we had all these rules. This is a building that's coming in, a business that's coming in that is solving a number of problems. Problems for the Shell station, problems for the police, problems for everybody in the neighborhood as far as generating traffic and loitering and that kind of stuff. It's a small building, and basically in comparison, it's a small sign just on a small wall. But I think to be able to put this in, especially with this being their corporate standards, and just putting it in, I think we're beating up on the wrong issue here. I think we just let them have their signs and go forward with that. With that being said, I'll move that we allow the variance on the sign.
All right. Motion by Mr. Ellison to grant the sign variances as requested. And is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. All right, is there further discussion on this?
Yeah, I haven't spoken, but I've taken in the thoughts of my fellow commissioners, and again, given the size of this building and the speed of traffic going by on Woodward, I just think it makes sense. The size of these signs, I think, are thoughtful in terms of wayfinding, and that would be why I would support the motion.
All right, further comments or discussions by the commissioners? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote on the motion by Mr. Ellison, seconded by Commissioner Douglas, to grant the sign variance as requested. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. If you're out there, Tim Hortons, congratulations. All right, next item, Mr. Hedges, you gave us some Michigan planner.
Yes, it's just a non-action item for the commission and the public's benefit. It's the most recent copy of the Michigan Planner. It's a publication from the Michigan Association of Planning.
Anybody else going to the conference?
I thought about it, but I haven't committed yet.
I'm signed up.
All right. I would just point out that we talked about but never really implemented a system for tracking continuing education for the commissioners. I think this would be a good idea both to let the public know that we are continuing to educate ourselves outside of this forum, as well as maybe giving ourselves some incentive to do so. I don't think we ever implemented that. That might be a little project we have to do at some point.
So the APA conference is coming to Detroit in 26, I think?
26 or 27 or possibly 28, I've lost track.
Yeah, but the national conference is coming here. It'd be a great opportunity for us.
All right.
I can find out exactly when. We can let you know when it will be.
We find out. And
Yeah.
All right. Before we move to discuss our meeting next week, there is one party that came in. I didn't know if you were intending to speak during the public comment. If you did, you missed it, but I would be happy to permit you to speak if that's what you were here for.
I just see that you withdrawn. I came for the first item.
Oh, okay, okay. Very good. Well, we already handled that. All right, thank you. All right, so if we can, I'd like to discuss how we're going to proceed next week. And by the way, is it Monday or Tuesday? I forgot already.
It's Monday, 6 p.m.
Okay, Monday at 6 p.m. is our master plan special meeting. And that's here, and we're going to have our consultant live, correct?
That's what I've been informed. It is the consultant, Mr. Lambert, will be here in person.
Okay, just him, just by himself.
I believe so. There may be other staff members with him from DPC Co-Design. But if there are, I haven't yet. That news hasn't trickled down to me yet.
Okay, well, we also have local, I don't know if they're, how involved they are. I think we might have mentioned this before, but I would, to the extent that those local folks have made a contribution, I would think that they might want to participate.
Would have to speak with Mr. Murphy in the morning to see if it's just Mr. Lambert or if there will be other consultants there as well.
Okay, me having never gone through this particular process before, I am curious if some of the commissioners with more experience or yourself can maybe give us some indication of how you think the proper format for this should be.
To my understanding, the meeting is set up for an opportunity for discussion and interaction between commissioners and Mr. Lambert, the consultant. It's an opportunity for you to, one, for Mr. Lambert to present, the overall presentation of the draft master plan that's been submitted, and then a time for commissioners to either comment or offer questions to him. And it's a time for interaction between the consultant and the commission. If there's things in the plan that you see you want changes made to, that would be the time to address them. Things you want added to, things you're in favor of, not so much in favor of, that's the opportunity to have that discussion with them. Or if you have questions on how some things are presented in the draft, that's the opportunity to work those out with Mr. Lambert. The end result of the meeting is hopefully a draft that the commission supports that we can then take to the formal public hearing, which is required under the state act. That's what we're looking to get to.
Right, this is our first of 3 scheduled
First
meetings.
of 3,
so we're
yes.
getting warmed up here. Is it your understanding that we would have Mr. Lambert give a presentation to start, and you know, there's 6 sections here. I don't know what we expect of him. Should we give him any direction, or just say, show up and give us a presentation?
My understanding, yes, there would be a brief presentation at the beginning for him to go over the plan. I don't know if he tends to go section by section or the whole plan. My guess would be, having been a consultant before, he may go section by section, but it's...
Should we give him any direction? Should we give him a time limit? Should we or should we just say, okay, it's your show? I mean, I'm just asking because I haven't done this before.
I would say just turn it over to, have him give his opening presentation and go from there. And then if the commission feels they need to offer feedback at any time, it's meant to be more of an informal meeting and not a formal, like the application process we have here for applicants for the commission. It's meant to be more of an informal discussion and interaction between the consultant and the commission.
Is there public comments? It's a public hearing, yes?
It is, well, no, it's not a public hearing.
Not a public hearing, okay.
It is a public meeting, so we do have to allow public comment. That will be on the agenda, most likely toward the end of the agenda. It won't be before, but since it is an open meeting of the Planning Commission, we do have to allow for public comment.
Okay, somebody had their hand up, but I don't, he was first, okay.
Yeah, that was actually my maybe question / suggestion, is that, one, we've had a lot of public input when it comes to the master plan, and there's been a lot of downright just false information floating around there. Some people honestly coming by it and having questions, and some people perpetuating things they know aren't true. So I think public comment will be a big part of this, and I would recommend that since the consultant is here on a limited time coming in, and that and especially for the public to hear what the consultant and what this body has to say back and forth, public comment I think would be best served at the end of the meeting, because there's more to chew on, right? But I don't have an issue if people want to leave some questions on note cards or something like that, and we can look at them and just say, oh, well, since we're talking about this issue, I have this question. Something like that if they want before the meeting starts is fine. But public engagement is an important thing, it's a good thing. But I don't want to have 3 hours of public comment that is irrelevant, because if they just waited for the presentation, half their questions would have been answered. And so I think to the benefit of them, it's best to have it at the end, so they are fully informed to know exactly what questions to ask and what comment to comment on after they've heard the initial pitch.
Yeah.
And that was exactly what I was going to say. So, but I will add this. Oh wait, what was my thought? Shoot, go on, it'll come back to me.
All right, any other, Mr. Cantina?
I guess I was just going to add it, and we can possibly cover it in the meeting with the consultant, but I think we should request that the additional consultants attend, if not the first meeting, then the second meeting, because I do think that there is potentially some questions or some guidance that may come up in our discussion next Monday, that really those other partner consultants are the ones best to answer those. And they may not be able to answer them that evening. I like the mayor's suggestion about the public being able to maybe leave some questions. I think those are things that the proper entities within the consultants group should be answering. Maybe not in that first meeting, but the only point I'm trying to make is I don't know what they're planning on doing. I think we should make it clear that we would like to see the other consultants attend at least that second meeting to potentially be able to answer some questions that might come up specifically for them out of the first meeting.
Now I remember. So Mr. Murphy created a really great page on the master plan website summarizing all of the public input that we've had on this. Because one of the things that, the buzz that I hear is that there hasn't, no transparency, there hasn't been enough public input. You need to go back to the drawing boards and listen even more. And when I look at that summary of all that we've done, I mean, more than 3,000 people responding to the most recent summary, all of the numbers of people, all of the different ways that people could attend, comment online. I mean, I want to make sure that that is clearly summarized as part of the presentation.
Yeah. Because I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's important that we're not just doing a master plan here. We have to communicate, what's actually transpired. And what transpired is, over the years, we've been listening to our citizens as elected and appointed representatives. And it was time to do a master plan because it was 20 years old and a lot of things had changed. And this plan is not just the consultant's plan, it's the plan made up, this first draft is really made up of, yes, consultant expertise, this planning board's input, the commission's input, but most importantly, the 3,000 people, the hours of charrettes, all of that input, online stuff has gotten us to where we're at now. So, if folks are having disagreements, they need to understand that, decisions are tough and strategy is tough, and that we have to listen to everybody. And part of the outcome that we see in this draft is a result of that broad and vast community input. I think it sets the tone for questions, like, why would you recommend this? Well, 3,000 people said they wanted it. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed.
And just for the commission and the public's benefit, there will still be the formal public hearing forthcoming. But prior to that happening, under the state Michigan Planning Enabling Act, this body, the Planning Commission, must, formally adopt the draft as a proposed plan and forward it to the City Commission. The City Commission must authorize its distribution. Then, at that point, that starts a 63-day clock where we have to notify adjoining communities and other agencies that this has been proposed and that the public hearing cannot be held until that 63-day clock expires. So we're still a ways away from the formal public hearing being scheduled.
So we're holding open dates in October? No, September.
Two.
So are those like contingency dates? I mean, so we have a meeting next week. It seems like there are two ways, decision tree, two ways this can go. Either we as a commission endorse, vote in favor of this draft and send it forward to the City Commission, or we have changes that we want to make. If we forward it to the City Commission, are those what's going to happen at those September meetings?
As I believe Mr. Murphy reported in July, that if you feel after next Monday's meeting that the September meetings aren't necessary, those can be canceled at your direction.
Okay.
We set up 3 just to give you as much time as you need to meet with the consultant. If you feel only 1 or 2 are necessary, the remaining meetings can be canceled at the commission's direction.
Very good, thank you.
All right. And, okay, I don't know who brought it up. I think the mayor did. So one of the things about the public comment is that we usually have 3 minutes. And on occasion, I don't think I've ever done this, but as long as I've been the chairperson, but I think if you had lots and lots of people, we could cut it down to 2 minutes or something like that. If we saw 80 people in here, we'd better have 2 minutes. But one of the things about the public comment is it's a one-way presentation. Public comes up, they talk to us. And in fact, we say, we're not going to answer your questions directly, but you brought up the thought of having cards that people could write questions during this session, which may go on for hours. I think that sounds like a pretty good idea, to let people write a card and maybe the consultant can answer or we can answer. I don't know, I'd like to expand on that a little bit, but we'd have to set that up ahead of time. We'd have to plan it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do simple as note cards, and you can say before the meeting starts or 5 minutes into the meeting you can write your questions, or you could be more open and say anytime you have a question, you can bring it up and put it at the box, and the consultant can look at it, and then we could take a pause and say, oh, here's an interesting question that hasn't. I mean, the risk is people always say, well, they didn't ask my question. It's like, well, yeah, you asked why the mayor you know, is wearing a blue shirt. That seemed irrelevant, you know what I mean? So there is some filtering sometimes that comes with it. But I think that it's a way to keep them engaged, but not have to worry about 5 minutes of back and forth and the meeting getting disrupted. It's
We
like
don't
if
want
you have-
that. Right.
If
That's
you have a
what I'm saying.
legitimate question, pop it up.
And I'm not saying we make a promise, we answer every single question, we get 150 questions, but there may be questions that, you know, maybe Doug can, you know, be looking at with a consultant while things are going on
Yeah.
and say, hey, we should address
Or a
this.
question that wasn't covered. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know what, the consultant, here's 5 questions, but actually in the first, you know, hour of the meeting, they actually answered that. And they're like, oh, here's a good one. You know, it deals with this issue that we didn't really cover in detail. And then maybe it is Mr. Hedges that can say, hey, look, here's a good question that came up that wasn't really covered. You know, you just have to have that arbitrator.
And I would suggest that that be, oh, sorry.
No worries. No, so, I mean, and I've been actually giving this a lot of thought. I'm not so sure that any sort of back and forth on the first meeting makes a whole lot of sense. Now, I'm not against the idea of them submitting 3x5 cards with suggestions, ideas, thoughts, concerns, what have you. But I mean, at that point, you take all that information and you tabulate it, and, you know, and then, you know, the city can sort of come out with a way, you know, these seem to be the 5 top concerns. And that's why I think the second meeting in September, quite frankly, will be the most valuable one, because that's when we're going to find out what we don't know. And I'm not a big fan. I don't think it may necessarily serve a purpose to be making, you know, fly by the seat of your pants comments on questions that we haven't had a chance to properly vet.
Well, that's a valid point, but, again, since I haven't done this before, I have no point of reference. I could imagine that they're, you know, again, they're not, the audience doesn't have a chance to ask questions I don't think that's a good idea in terms of on the fly, verbally from the podium. But I think that having people submit questions, even if we said, we're gonna take these and we'll answer them at the next meeting, it still
Yeah.
might be valuable.
That's my point. I think that's a better approach.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you can do both. I think that you can say, you know, our goal here is to, you know, for you to submit the questions, and some of them, if they're very easy or relevant, we'll, you know, ask that question, and then the other ones will get an answer to you by the next meeting. We might not be able to answer every question, but I think you have to have a little, like if it's like, hey, what is meant by this term? Okay, you know what I mean? That's a real quick one we can answer, but, you know, we'll have a stack and we'll say, look, there's a bunch of questions here that, you know, we want to get to public comment because that's important, and we'll get and we've done that before in other circumstances where people have submitted questions and then we go online and we say the FAQs and we've answered them before.
Yeah, I think we can be, there's different ways to handle the questions, either on the spot, pocketed for the next meeting, or online, sure.
No, but I mean, and you can even answer, like, sort through, like, oh, we can answer this one, and then some of these are more, those will actually be discussed the next meeting, but I think you can sort through them, and if there's some we can answer, I mean, because you could literally spend the whole time answering questions and the same questions over and over
We
again.
don't want to get too distracted, but I think we also do want to have a channel.
Yeah.
And I would say that I would want the person vetting those to be a staff person and not a consultant.
Yeah.
I'm signing Mr. Hedges up for this, I suspect.
May not be here, but we'll get somebody.
Anyway, so because I'm assuming that Mr. Murphy will be, I'm assuming that Mr. Murphy will be the staff in charge of the discussion. So perhaps there's another, you know, associate in the planning department who would be good to do that. But I just don't think the consultants should be picking their questions.
All right. Okay, so what we have so far is that we're going to have the consultant here in person. We're going to let them do a presentation first. We're going to let them have their head and do what they want. Then we're going to, as a panel, ask questions at that point. That would be the second step.
I believe so. Again, this isn't really structured formally. It's meant
That's what
to
I'm
be
trying to
an
get at.
informal, open discussion between
Yeah.
you and the consultant. There's not going to be any established outlined agenda to go through. Again, it's meant to be informal back and forth between you and the consultant.
All right, and then would there be a point where you say, okay, we're done, we're going to open it up to public comment?
Well,
Or at least we're pausing.
I would probably have you refer that to Mr. Murphy, because this really is going to be his show, not mine.
Okay.
More specific questions about what's gonna happen, you may want to give him a call or an email tomorrow.
Okay, well, I thought everybody should be part of the discussion, but I
Yeah.
probably will. All right, the other thing is, we are at least seriously considering to have some sort of a card system for the public.
I will inform him of that.
And it sounds like the sense of the panel here is that we might like the staff to give the consultant a call and say, hey, we want to know if you're bringing your buddies, local buddies, and if you're not, please consider it.
Yep, I will ask him that as well.
Okay, all right. Any other comments or discussions or questions about next week's special meeting? Okay, hearing none, I think I got some information that I feel I needed, and I appreciate that. So, the next thing on the agenda is adjournment. It's a very difficult issue.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
One of the good things.